What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Gridiron Junkies official YouTube channel. As always, I'm your host, Rick Horn. Hey, listen, if you're already part of the community, welcome back. We're glad to have you. If you are new and you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up and just smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell, get the notifications, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be great. We're really trying to grow this community and to just make it something awesome. Because listen, if you're a fan of football, you've come to the right place. All of the trash talk, all of the banter, all of the action, it's all right here. And we're going to have tons more content coming up about the NFL, the XFL, everything in between, just everything football. And I know it's been crazy. 2020 has just absolutely sucked. But here we are. Things are starting to kind of slowly creep their way back to a sense of normalcy. We've been without live sports for a while outside of the UFC. They've had actually several events lately, and that's been nice. I like watching the fights, but we are hoping for a NFL regular season this year. So we'll have to see what happens. That I know there's kind of been some rumblings at a few stadiums, about having fans there just at a reduced capacity. So we'll have to see what happens there. That's another video for another time. But today I want to look at the NFC North. I want to look at where each team stacks up against the rest of the division. I'm going to be giving some way too early record predictions based on a number of things, based on some players they acquired, whether that was through free agency or the draft, or maybe they traded for somebody, along with some players that they lost. Now, I'm not going to talk about every single player that they either gained or lost this year, but rather just kind of some key people that are going to have some kind of an impact, whether that be positive or negative. And so, yeah, let's dive right into it. Coming in dead last for me at number 4 this year are the Detroit Lions, who had just an absolutely terrible season last year with Matthew Stafford only playing half of it. But even with him on the field, I know he wasn't 100% healthy while he was there, but they were only able to muster up a record of 3-12-1. And all 3 of those wins and that one tie, were with Matthew Stafford. And that one tie came in week 1 against rookie Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, and they have a putrid defense just like the Lions do. Outside of one bright spot in Darius Slay. But I do think this team has improved this year just with Matthew Stafford alone. Obviously they weren't able to win a single game without him last year. Matthew Stafford, I still think he's a solid quarterback, so they will be better just based on that alone. But yeah, let's take a look at some players that they added. Jamie Collins, linebacker of the New England Patriots, was signed in free agency, and he does add some athleticism and playmaking ability, very much needed at that position. And Collins is now reunited with Matt Patricia. So I think of the free agent acquisitions that they added, he'll probably have a better immediate understanding than some of the other free agents in terms of the overall defensive scheme. So, I think that this is good for both Jamie Collins and Matt Patricia. It does, I think, give them a boost very much needed at linebacker. Desmond Trufant, cornerback of the Atlanta Falcons, was added after coming off a career-high 4 interceptions last season, despite only playing 9 games, which is just a shame. I know that there's going to be some health concerns. We'll have to see if it's, more just kind of a blip on the map. He's going to be football old. That's really a concern for me for both of these guys, for both Jamie Collins and Desmond Trufant. Jamie Collins this year, he turns 31, and Desmond Trufant turns 30, which that is football old. That is by no means, old in real life, but that is football old, and you have to worry, obviously with Desmond Trufant becoming, quote, football old. You have to wonder if he's going to be injury prone, or if that's just kind of a blip on an otherwise, healthy career. And you also have to worry about a decline in production at the cornerback position after they did trade away Darius Slay to the Eagles. And Darius Slay's coming off 3 consecutive seasons of being a Pro Bowler, so that's an obvious concern there. Geronimo Allison, wide receiver from the Green Bay Packers, was added this year in free agency. And to me, he doesn't add a ton of groundbreaking value, right? But it is another weapon for Matthew Stafford outside of Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Danny Mendol, he's flashed here and there, but I'm not super sold. I've never been sold on Danny Mendol as being, a huge threat. He's definitely a solid wide receiver. And obviously, he's had a pretty decent career, but just nothing great. And same with Geronimo Allison, but it's another weapon. And of course, T.J. Hawkinson, the rookie tight end, he started to flash pretty early and then just kind of flamed out. And now we'll take a look at some players that they drafted. So number 3 overall, they drafted Jeffrey Okudah, cornerback from Ohio State. And I mean, listen, they drafted the best player available, who just also happened to fill a huge need for the Lions after trading away Darius Slay. And he was easily the best player available not only the best player available, but the best player at his position in this draft class. I mean, he's fast, he's long, he's athletic, and really looking at the tape, he can really match up with any type of receiver. Drafted number 35 overall was Deandre Swift, running back from Georgia. And I like this move. I really like this draft pick. They were able to nab him in the second round. And I like this. This could really be a great 1-2 punch with him and Kerryon Johnson. And I know there's a lot of hate on Kerryon Johnson. I still believe that Kerryon Johnson is a great talent. But it's kind of been rough for him in Detroit so far. But I think with the addition of Deandre Swift, this could really be a great 1-2 punch. And I think that Deandre Swift was arguably one of the best runners in this draft class. So I think overall, I mean, on both sides of the ball, it looks like they did improve a little bit, albeit, with a huge hit of losing Darius Slay, who again was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of 3 consecutive Pro Bowl seasons. And he was really, in my opinion, one of, if not the only bright spot on an otherwise putrid defense. Last year, they had a strength of schedule. Not last year. This year, they have a strength of schedule that is tied for 5th with the Buffalo Bills and the Atlanta Falcons. And so, when you take all of this into account, between losing Darius Slay but adding, Desmond Trufant and Jeffrey Okudah, I don't want to say the value equals out there, but maybe it's not as big of a hit on them, and adding Jamie Collins there. I do think that this team is a little bit improved, but I'm just not sold on Matt Patricia. But I do think between adding those pieces and having Matthew Stafford back, they will be, I'm going to give them a little bit of improvement here. I think that I want to give them a soft 7-9, although I'm more erring on a record of 6-10. Like I said, just between not really trusting Matt Patricia. They still have a pretty weak defense, and they have a really tough schedule this year. So 7-9, I think, is pretty fair. Again, erring on the side of 6-10. Coming in at number 3 are the Chicago Bears, and this one was a little bit tougher to call. Last year, everything that could go wrong absolutely did go wrong for the Bears, and they did absolutely nothing to address their offensive line. They did finish 8-8 last year with the 5th toughest schedule, but I really think that's more a testament to their defense. I'm not a huge fan of Matt Nagy. I don't have a lot of trust in him. But anyway, let's take a look at some players that they added. Robert Quinn, linebacker of the Dallas Cowboys. They definitely needed somebody opposite of Khalil Mack to rush the quarterback, and they absolutely got it. Listen, Robert Quinn is an absolute beast. He is a stud of a pass rusher and definitely just an excellent replacement of a very paltry Leonard Floyd. This is, I think, a great move for the Chicago Bears. They already had a pretty scary defense to begin with, but Robert Quinn has been a beast for some time now. I was a huge fan of his back when he was with the Rams, really specifically when they were with the St. Louis Rams. I'm a St. Louis guy. But anyway, no, this is a great addition. Jimmy Graham, tight end of the Green Bay Packers last year. This is, I guess it's technically an upgrade over the tight ends that they had last year. Trey Burton didn't really pan out for them. I guess if you want to say anything for Jimmy Graham, he hasn't missed a game since 2015, but he's been on the decline for quite some time now. This is definitely not the tight end from his days with the Saints. And it feels like the Chicago Bears have like 40 tight ends. Right now, I think they have 9 or 10 on the roster, but a lot of those guys are just camp bodies. Jimmy Graham will end up making the roster. It's technically an upgrade, but not a huge one, but there's some name value there. So there you have it with him. Nick Foles, quarterback from the Philadelphia Eagles, who they actually got in a trade with the Eagles. He's certainly by no means a lock to be the starter. It's going to be an open competition between him and Mitchell Trubisky. But at the very least, this definitely makes the quarterback room better and stronger. Last year, it was Mitchell Trubisky and Chase Daniels, who's been a solid backup. But, regardless of who ends up being the number 2 quarterback, it will definitely be stronger than Chase Daniels last year. I mean, Nick Foles, he's been in the spotlight. You know, he was a Super Bowl MVP not that long ago. I think he's an upgrade over Mitchell Trubisky as well. Although I think it's, you know, only a minor step up. But we'll have to see what happens in the competition between those two fellas. Number 43 overall from the 2020 NFL Draft, they picked up Cole Kmet from Notre Dame. And this was actually the first pick of the draft for the Bears. And Cole Kmet was actually considered by many to be the top tight end of the draft class, and for good reason. I mean, he's an excellent pass catcher. He has great size, standing at 6'6", 262 pounds. And again, this just adds to the already huge tight end room that they have on their roster. They had 9 tight ends on their roster, including Jimmy Graham. But like I said, a lot of these guys are camp bodies. I think it's going to be, you know, Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham in a lot of the 2 tight end sets. And he's just a beast. And I think, you know, it may take a little bit of time, but I don't think it'll be very long before Cole Kmet ends up being the top target from the tight end position. Number 50 overall, Jalen Johnson, cornerback from Utah. And listen, this guy is an absolute bully of a cornerback. He plays a very, very physical game. He's a fast guy. He has good speed. He runs a 4.5 second 40-yard dash. Very, very good cornerback. And again, I think this just adds to an already stout Chicago Bears defense. So definitely some good moves there. As far as losses go, they did lose Prince Amukamara. He was definitely a key member in, like I said, one of the league's best defenses. He's coming off a season in which he knocked away 10 passes and recorded 53 tackles across 15 starts. And before that, I mean, 2018, he had a fantastic year there as well. They also lost Clinton Dix, who also had a pretty good year. He recorded 78 total tackles, defended 5 passes, and he had 2 interceptions, one of which was actually a pick 6. So definitely some pretty significant losses there from those 2 guys. So, but I think with the additions that they made, I think this really, it feels like they really just stayed the same. I guess to me, the most impactful person that they added was definitely Robert Quinn. He's an absolute beast. I'm a huge fan of his, so definitely a good add for them. As far as strength of schedule goes for the Chicago Bears this year, they are tied for 13th with the Seattle Seahawks. So, right around middle of the pack-ish, right? But again, I don't have a ton of trust in Matt Nagy. Now, they do have a huge opportunity to just explode right out of the gate. None of their first 4 opponents of the year made the playoffs last year. The Lions, the Falcons, the Giants, and the Colts, although I know they have Phillip Rivers now. So that's kind of up in the air, but none of their first 4 opponents made the playoffs last year. So they definitely have an opportunity to come swinging right out of the gate. I am going to give them a little bit of credit, although, again, I'm just not 100% confident in Matt Nagy. Now, if Nick Foles ends up winning the quarterback job, I think that they'll do better. But I'm going to give them a record of 9-7. So I do think that they finished 3rd in the division. I know last year, they have a much easier schedule, so they very well could go 10-6, but I don't see them doing much better than that. If they have competent quarterback play, whether that be through Mitchell Trubisky or Nick Foles, the sky's the limit. I mean, they have a solid defense, but again, they have a terrible offensive line, and they did absolutely nothing to address that. So I'll give them a little bit of credit here, but 9-7 is where we sit with the Chicago Bears this year. Coming in at number 2 for me this year is the Minnesota Vikings. I actually went back and forth on this for a while because I do think that this is going to be an absolute dogfight between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. I will give the edge to the Packers, however, just based on the fact the Packers do have an easier schedule. The Vikings actually have one of the toughest road schedules in the league this year. Certainly a tougher road schedule than anybody else in the NFC North. So I'll give the edge to the Green Bay Packers. And I know that news came out, Dalvin Cook is holding out from any team activities until he gets a, quote, reasonable contract. I'm going to do this video assuming that they get a deal done with Dalvin Cook. He is certainly the most important piece of that offense. They built the entire offense specifically for him to succeed. They love to run the football. And I mean, when he's healthy, he's an absolute beast. So that's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the pieces that were added by the Vikings this year. So in terms of free agency, the Vikings really didn't do a whole lot. They did add Michael Pierce from the Baltimore Ravens, who was a solid interior defensive lineman and had a grade of 70.6 in run defense from Pro Football Focus. So great run defender, or at least at the very least, a solid run defender, right? Coming from a very stout Baltimore Ravens defense to another respectable defense there in Minnesota. I guess if I had to make a call, I guess this would be probably the biggest move that they made in terms of free agency this year. But they did also add Tajay Sharp, from a wide receiver from the Tennessee Titans. And I know there's not a ton of name value here. Nothing about his career has been particularly eye-popping thus far. But look, he is still a young player, still plenty of time to develop in a very solid Minnesota Vikings team. And they got him cheap. I mean, they got him to a 1-year prove-it deal. And if absolutely nothing else, it does add depth behind Adam Thielen from the gaping hole that was left behind by Stephon Diggs being traded to the Buffalo Bills. So, I mean, he'll have a chance to be the number 2 target outside of Adam Thielen. And I mean, I'm not going to knock the guy until we see what happens. So in terms of the draft, number 22 overall in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings was one Justin Jefferson of LSU. And again, this filled an immediate void left behind by the departure of Stephon Diggs. And Justin Jefferson, he's an athletic wide receiver, excellent in the slot. And he could be one of, if not the single most productive rookie wide receiver this season. He's going to get an immediate opportunity to produce. I mean, this is a great pick. I love the tape on Justin Jefferson. But this was definitely a big need for them with Stephon Diggs being traded to the Buffalo Bills. Number 31, they also added Jeff Gladney, cornerback from TCU. He's a very physical corner, especially for given his smaller size, standing at 5'10", 191 pounds. He does have respectable speed. He clocked a 4.48 second 40-yard dash. He plays very well in man coverage, and he's just a solid and very willing tackler in terms of run support. The only thing that concerns me here is obviously his size. He is a smaller corner, but I mean he's a very physical guy, and he's a great defender, especially given his size. So we'll have to see what happens there. I mean, in terms of defense, they were already a respectable defense. I think the biggest loss here is obviously has to be Stephon Diggs. We all know what a great player he is, but it's very clear that he wanted out from the Vikings, and so the Vikings absolutely got a king's ransom for Stephon Diggs this year. They did also lose Everson Griffin, Linval Joseph, and Xavier Rhodes, so some pretty significant hits there. In terms of strength of schedule, right now the Vikings are tied for 10th with the Los Angeles Rams. So definitely, a little bit tougher than the Chicago Bears. But like I said before, they have certainly the toughest road schedule out of any team this year, which is certainly important to note. I have the Vikings going 10-6 this year. They very well could go 11-5, but I feel pretty firm at 10-6. I think that they definitely need to get a deal done with Dalvin Cook in order for them to have any kind of success. I love Alexander Mattison, and certainly in terms of fantasy football, Alexander Mattison is going to be the single biggest handcuff, the most valuable handcuff. If for whatever reason Dalvin Cook misses any time, that draft price is going to skyrocket. But there you have it, 10-6 for the Minnesota Vikings this year. All right, wrapping things up here at number 1 are the Green Bay Packers, who I do see regressing a little bit this year from the 13-3 finish that they had last year, winning the division. I like them to win the division again this year. And they certainly didn't do any favors for Aaron Rodgers in terms of adding weapons for him outside of Devontae Adams in what was an absolutely cartoonishly stacked wide receiver draft class this year, or in free agency for that matter. So I do like them to regress a little bit this year. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the pieces that they added. So Devin Funchess, wide receiver from the Indianapolis Colts last year, not really a huge impact on the team's overall value. He does replace Geronimo Allison. I do think he's a little bit better than Geronimo Allison, although I don't see this as a huge upgrade over Geronimo Allison. He will have the opportunity to fight for that number 2 wide receiver role with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, albeit an uninspiring battle between the two. We'll just have to see what happens there. They also added Christian Kirksey in free agency, linebacker from the Cleveland Browns. If nothing else, he does add a veteran presence at the position. He's an okay linebacker. He's had some health issues. He's only played 9 games over the last 2 seasons. So health is obviously a huge concern for this guy. But it does add a veteran presence there. When he's on the field, he does have the ability to be, a playmaker there on the defensive side of the ball, so we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully he can stay healthy. And as far as the draft goes, the Packers had an absolutely terrible draft, easily the worst draft in the entire NFL, kicking things off with their number 1 pick, drafted number 26 overall, who they actually moved up to get quarterback Jordan Love from Utah State. Easily the single most controversial pick in the draft. Again, like I said, when you consider the fact they moved up to go get him. They passed up on an opportunity to get Aaron Rodgers, a high-level weapon in the wide receiver range, in what was, like I said, a huge wide receiver draft class. And this is obviously reminiscent of the whole Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers situation back when Aaron Rodgers was drafted. So this could be as far as long-term goes, this could be a great move. I've watched some tape on Jordan Love. He's a good quarterback. There's some mechanics that he has to work on. But as far as going into a win now mode, this was absolutely terrible. Aaron Rodgers is still a solid quarterback. He's not really declining that much. He's still playing at a very high level. So for them not to add any weapons for him in the passing game is, I think, just a huge slap in the face for him. They also added A.J. Dillon in the draft at number 62 overall, running back out of Boston College. A.J. Dillon is an absolute tank of a man. At 6 foot, 247 pounds, he's a very tough guy to tackle, not just because of his size, obviously. He forced 81 missed rushing tackles last year, which was 3rd most in all of college football. And again, it passed, with this pick, they passed on an opportunity to get wide receiver talent. But it's very clear that Matt LaFleur wants to run the ball more, so could potentially be a great 1-2 punch between him and Aaron Jones. Just an absolute tank of a man, So it definitely helps in the running game. But again, does Aaron Rodgers no help in the passing game? So we'll have to see what happens. They might become a run-heavy team this year. In terms of losses, obviously, like I said, Geronimo Allison ended up signing with the Detroit Lions. They also lost Brian Bulaga, offensive tackle. He was a solid lineman. He had a history of injuries, but last year he did play all 16 games. So that's a pretty significant loss for them, along with Blake Martinez, who had 155 total tackles in the NFL last year, which was second behind only Bobby Wagner. So huge hit for them there. As far as strength of schedule goes, right now they are sitting smack dab in the middle at 15th overall in terms of strength of schedule and difficulty. Like I said, I do have them regressing a bit. I'm going to knock them a couple games. I'm going to say that the Packers are going to go 11-5. We'll have to see, what type of friction goes on, or more friction goes on between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. But like I said, the Packers are going to go 11-5. I have them going 11-5 to once again win the NFC North. So that's going to wrap it up for the NFC North in this video. Definitely some competition, I think, going to be going on between like I said, the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings as to who is going to win that division this year. We'll take a look at some more divisions in the NFC in the upcoming week. So definitely be sure to keep an eye out for more content. And like I said before, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, hit the bell, get the notifications. There's going to be tons of more videos coming up, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we'll talk to you guys later.